The dark art of overclocking. So the GTX 680 is, to my understanding, fairly overclockable, but I haven't seen any numbers yet. So I'm going to be using a retail sample. So this is probably going to be the only review that's up on launch day of the GTX 680 using a retail non-hand-picked board. And we're going to see how far it goes and how well it can compare in terms of performance to the highly overclockable HD 7970 from AMD. So I've already got a lot of my numbers prepared here. I have my stock speed 680 results. I have my stock speed 7970 results, then I have my 680 OC results, still to fill in because I have not yet begun overclocking, and then I've got my 7970 OC results, which are based on basically maxing out the overclocking within the Catalyst Control Center. So we were running at, oh shoot, what was it? Right, 1.125 gigahertz on the processor and then 6.3 gigahertz on the memory. So this is one freaking fast card, and I am very, very excited to see what we can get out of its main competitor, the GTX 680. Here you go. Oh yeah, I'll be having a, right, so guys, I'll be having a look at not only the performance, but also the difference in power consumption from overclocking these cards. So you can see there was definitely an increase from the stock power consumption to the overclocked power consumption. I'll also be looking at how temperatures are affected because I've got all of my baseline readings done. So stay tuned, guys. We are going to be using EVGA Precision, which at launch is the only overclocking application to support the 680. I'm more of an MSI afterburner guy myself. I love their, oh, yeah, see, it's not going to work. I love their simple interface, and I'm just very used to it. I like the way they do their graphs, but since Precision is what we're using, Precision is what I will have to figure out how to work. So stay tuned, guys. Let's see how this goes. Well, I guess we better do a basic rundown of Precision X first. So number one is that it has integrated voltage adjustments for the GPU, so you can actually slide these to where you want them to go. You can press set. I'm not going to be changing any voltages. I did not change voltages on the 7970, so I will not be adjusting voltages on the GTX 680 for the sake of this basic overclocking guide. You guys want to turn up voltages on your CPUs, be careful in terms of your cooling. Be careful not to fry your GPU because it is a very expensive mistake to make. And while yes, turning up voltages may not affect it in any way, this is a new graphics card on a new manufacturing process. There are no guarantees that it won't break your card, whether it's today or tomorrow or 2 months from now. So maybe let someone else be the guinea pig. Okay, so we've got a performance log, frame rate target, which is this kind of neat thing right here. We can enable this to set a target FPS, which is interesting because it seems to be related to the fact that the GTX 680 dynamically scales its power consumption, which is, I don't know, probably here somewhere. Okay. Don't see it, but it scales its power consumption with its GPU clocks in order to achieve the optimal heat output to stay within the power target and heat target that it was designed for. So in order to get any serious overclocking done, you're probably going to want to adjust your power target. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it pretty much, I don't care what kind of power target you reach as long as we're not turning up any voltage. Okay, so that's one thing. We've also got monitoring of temperature, monitoring of fan speed. This is cool. You can use this software to set up a fan curve. I love fan curves. I think they're amazing. I think giving users the control to say, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable, you know, with really low fan speeds up to 70 degrees, and then I want it to ramp right up to 100%, get it cooled back down. If you want it to work that way, you can totally make it work that way. So I'm going to turn that off. Adjusting voltages. Aha, GPU clock offset. So let's talk about GPU boost. So the basic clock here, so that's at about 1 gigahertz, 1006 megahertz or something like that. And then the boost clock at 1056 or something along those lines. Those are both clock speeds of your GPU. So you can set an offset. So what that means is the offset until it detects that it has extra TDP room, extra power room in order to boost itself up from the offset that you've set. So for example, if I set the offset at 100 megahertz, and I know this GPU is probably going to be good for 100 megahertz, otherwise I wouldn't set that. You should probably only go up in increments of like 15 to 25, go ahead and apply that. You can see those dials are hopefully going to move in some way, or unless that's just showing the base default one. Okay, cool, interesting. Maybe we'll just get started and see how this goes. Okay, but either way, that's how offsets are supposed to work. So as it needs more power, it can boost itself up, and you're just setting up what the base GPU clock will be, and it'll boost from there. That's sort of the point. Okay guys, so I see how this works. Now, while I don't recommend using FurMark for any kind of extended period of time, it's been handy for me for this because it's allowed me to examine how here with the performance log, I can see the percentage of power that the board is using. Please focus, there we go. Compared to, see, we've hit 132, which is the maximum I was able to set for the power target, compared to what the GPU clock is actually running at. So 1145 is what we seem to be peaking at, which is actually 1172 is our 100% peak. So that's we should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 106 plus 153. So what is that? Or 1006 plus 153. So 1161, something like that. So yeah, you can see we're popping up there once in a while, but not staying there consistently. So I'll have to look at how performance is actually affected, but it looks like the way the overclocking works, at least with precision, is that we are pretty much just overclocking the boost clock, and I don't see a way to adjust the base clock, although, because yeah, obviously I can't find any manual or instructions for this right now, but if it turns out that I'm wrong, then I apologize, and guys, please leave a comment and let me know. But there we have it. So let's see what kind of a performance improvement we get by increasing the turbo GPU boost clock offset on the GTX 680. Well, I can see this causing some confusion. So due to the way GPU boosts works, where it turns up the GPU clock if it has the available power headroom, if you turn the overclocking, the offset, up past where it's capable of throttling to, it looks like performance does not continue to scale. So you can see we have a score of 3167. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. Now, when I was at 153 offset, we were able to score 3488 on the extreme preset in 3D Mark 11. However, what you guys will see is 3172. So this is almost exactly the same as what I got with my stock configuration on the GTX 680. So it looks like once we turn it up past the threshold, it doesn't necessarily scale 100% correctly. Now this is an early beta version of Precision X, and like I said, I have no instructions, so I'm not even 100% sure if I'm doing it right, but I'm going to put it back at the setting I had before and run it one more time to see if I can get my overclocked setting dialed in here. So now we see an even higher score. So this is at plus 153, so you can see we're getting about 1250 megahertz when the benchmarks are actually running, and we're seeing about a 100-ish, 102, 119, 126. So we're seeing pretty close to the power threshold that we've set over here in some strenuous situations. So let's do some real-world benchmarking and find out how this GPU boost overclocking actually works. Now I would really prefer if they made some tweaks to the interface here, allowing you to boost up this base clock rather than only the boost clock, so that you have at least some idea of a baseline that you're running at without it doing any like funky scaling back and forth. But maybe that's something we'll see in a future revision, hard to say. Let's check out the real world performance. So this is weird. Check this out, guys. So with the overclocked settings running on the GTX 680, I'm not getting that weird flickering that I was getting in Skyrim with it at stock speed. So yeah, I don't know what to say. It seems to have kind of healed itself. Anyway, I'm just finishing up my overclocked settings benchmarking, and I'll be done shortly. So in conclusion, even after overclocking both of the cards, the GTX 680 is still the winner. And once I get the hang of overclocking it, it might actually be a winner by a more substantial margin. So I have a game running in the background. So this shows what my final overclock ended up being, 145. This was stable in all of my games. You can see the fluctuations in the clock speed, as well as the fluctuations in the peak power consumption, according to the power target up here. So, I mean, yeah, I think there's probably still some refinement to be done to the Precision X tool or whatever other tools end up becoming popular with these cards. But let's talk results for a little bit here. So, idle power is up about 10 watts versus the stock clocked card. And then idle temps are around the same. 3D Mark 11, we saw up to 3572 3D marks, although at the same clock speeds we saw scores about 100 marks lower even. So there seems to be some inconsistency in the scores, although we saw fairly consistent improvements across the board. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all this other stuff. So we saw fairly consistent improvements across the board. So here is the, So we saw about a 7-8% improvement in Battlefield 3. Then in Crisis 2 we saw, very little there. So about a 4% improvement, 3.5% improvement, something along those lines. Witcher 2, we see about a 8% improvement, something along those lines, or like 6 or whatever that works out to. Power consumption is a little bit higher across the board, using the same methodology I was using in my original performance review to measure that. See, this is weird. Dirt 3 actually went down a little bit in terms of average frame rate, although power consumption went up substantially. Batman Arkham City is up significantly. I'm probably going to have to rerun these numbers, and I'll do an annotation on my original review video if there's anything foul about them, because you can see that power consumption number is low. That could also have to do with GPU boost, scaling back the power and scaling back the performance. Skyrim, we see NVIDIA is definitely the king here, and we see a very moderate performance improvement in Skyrim. That is what I would consider to be within the margin of error for this test, so we didn't see much of a performance boost there. However, it is still good enough to beat the Radeon 7970 overclocked. So there you have it, guys, my GTX 680. Let's call this preliminary overclocking video, because I don't think we can call these results final, but this is what I've got ready for launch, and hopefully I'll be able to do a follow-up at some point, let you guys know if there are any changes to my overclocking methodology with this card. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos, and don't forget how dedicated I am to you guys here. Here I am finishing up my benchmarks, and I'm probably not done for the night yet, so enjoy, subscribe for more sleep-deprived nights with me.